When we think of monsters in the woods, our minds usually jump to mindless beasts, right? But what if the most famous guardian of the Slavic forests wasn't really a monster at all? What if he was something far more sophisticated? Today, let's explore that idea and look at the Leshy as this powerful, almost political figure, an environmental guardian straight out of folklore.
Just let that sink in for a second. We walk into a forest thinking it's just a place, right? A resource. But this question, it flips the whole script. It suggests the wild isn't just empty space. It's a kingdom with a ruler and a set of laws you probably just broke.
And that is exactly how these old stories see it. In this worldview, the forest isn't some pantry for humans to raid. Oh no, it's a totally separate domain, an otherworldly realm, and it's governed by its own master, the Leshy. And this table really lays out the stark difference. On one side, you have the baptized world of the village. It's predictable, it's safe, and it's run by human rules. But the moment you step into the forest, you're in the other world. It's a sovereign territory, and everything there is under the complete and total control of the Leshy. So if you're the sovereign of the wild, how do you enforce your rule? Well, the Leshy's famous powers aren't just there to scare people. They're actually the practical tools he uses to govern his domain and really to manage its resources. And his control is absolute. I mean, just look at this. He can become any animal, any plant. He can grow taller than the highest trees to show you who's boss, or shrink down smaller than a blade of grass to watch you, totally unseen. He's the shepherd of the woods, controlling the animals, even the wind itself. He isn't just in the environment, he is the environment. But even when he decides to look human, there are always these little giveaways, these signs of his wrongness. Things that prove he is not from our world. He doesn't cast a shadow. He might have blue blood or these glowing green eyes. And get this, he wears his clothes backwards. Now that's not just a random detail. Tuck that away because it's going to be really important later on. Okay, so he's got the power, we get it. But what are the rules? See, the Leshy doesn't just act on a whim. His actions are all based on a very strict code of conduct that he enforces on anyone and everyone who steps into his territory. It's called the Law of the Wild. And this quote, this is the heart of his law, right here. The Leshy is basically a neutral judge. He's not inherently good or evil. His response is a direct mirror of your own behavior. It's all about reciprocity. It's a strict balance sheet of respect for his domain. Let's look at a couple of classic examples of this law in action. You've got Ivan the lumberjack. He stomps in with total arrogance, takes way too much wood, breaks young trees, sings loud, obnoxious songs. His outcome? He gets punished. The stories say he gets re-educated. Then you have Marfa, a widow. She shows humility. She asks permission. She leaves a small gift of bread. And in return, she's protected by wolves and even gifted perfectly seasoned wood. Same forest, same guardian. Completely different outcomes, all based on respect. You see, leaving a gift wasn't just some quaint superstition. It was a recognized transaction. They saw it as a ritualized economic exchange, which is basically a fancy way of saying you're paying a tax to the ruler of the forest for the right to use his resources. You acknowledge his sovereignty, and in return, you might just make it out safely. So, what happens when you don't pay that tax? What happens when you act like Ivan? Well, the Leshy's punishments aren't about brute force. They're psychological attacks, designed specifically to shatter a person's arrogance and put them back in their place. His most famous method is called blood, which means wandering. And this isn't just, getting a little lost. The Leshy actively messes with the environment around you. He'll shift the paths, make the same weird-looking tree appear over and over again until your sense of direction, your sense of control is just completely gone. And he has other terrifying tricks up his sleeve, too. He'll mimic the voices of your loved ones to lure you deeper into a swamp. He'll clap his hands, and it sounds like thunder, just to scramble your brain. He'll hide your tools, your axe, leaving you totally helpless. And then there's this one. In extreme cases of disrespect, folklore says he might tickle you to death. Yeah, a truly bizarre and awful way to go.
So, let's say this happens. You're lost, you're disoriented, you're terrified by the sovereign of the woods. Is there any way out? The answer is yes, but it requires you to completely abandon human logic and submit to the rules of the forest. It requires a very specific ritual of humility.
So here's the guide straight from the folklore. First, you have to stop. Just stop fighting it and admit you are powerless. Then you take off all your clothes, put them back on inside out, and swap your shoes to the opposite feet. You have to physically adopt the inverted, topsy-turvy logic of his world. And here's the crucial part. This isn't a magic spell. It's a profound act of submission. Remember how the Leshy wears his clothes backwards? By doing the same thing, you're mirroring him. You are signaling without words that you get it. You're acknowledging his world, his rules, and that you are just a guest. And once that humility is shown, the illusion shatters and the path home appears. So when you put it all together, the Leshy is so much more than a simple boogeyman. He's the embodiment of a pretty sophisticated cultural tool, a system for enforcing sustainable resource management, and maybe more importantly, for keeping human arrogance in check. These stories were a powerful reminder that nature is a sovereign force, and it demands respect.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? The Leshy might be a figure from folklore, but the principles he represents, reciprocity, respect, humility before the natural world, those are very, very real. And it really makes you wonder, what ancient rules of nature have we forgotten, and what would it take for us to remember them?